love on a hillside so long, long ago. For you and for me, Jesus died, and love's greatest story was told. I love you. I love you. That's what Calvary said. I love you. I love you. I love you, Rita, amen. And through the ages, God of His love, with the same hands has suffered and bled, giving all He had to give, a message so easily read. I love you. I love you. That's what Calvary said. I love you. I love you. I love you, Rita. Oh, precious is the precious that makes me white as snow. I know nothing but the blood of Jesus. I love you. I love you. That's what Calvary said. I love you. I love you. I love you, Christian in
Let's go to God in prayer. Father, we come before you this morning as we lift up this portion of the service. We pray now, Father, as we open up your word, that you would have people's hearts and minds would be open to receive your word and your will. Be with me as I teach, that hearts and minds would be receptive, that you would give me a recall of what you've given me to study. Father, if there's anyone here who is outside of the will of Christ, we pray that today would be the day that they're obedient to your gospel message. And for all that's done and not failed, to give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. We ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. If you have a Bible this morning, turn with me to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. We'll read that in a little bit. Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. This week, there's a special day coming up. What is it? Groundhog last week. Groundhog. That's my day. Groundhog. You did. Groundhog. You're going to give me something sometime. Give me a real hard groundhog. Valentine's Day. Y'all ready for Valentine's Day? Well, I take that as a resounding and my part, about 2 weeks. The wedding was huge. It took many, many months of planning and all the details. Finally came the big day, the wedding, when the bride and the groom came down and met the aisle here, and they said their vows and departed, and everything was absolutely picture perfect. They had the ceremony and all the good eats and things, and they finally left the ceremony, went back to the motel and got in the room and sat down in the chair, and the husband said, "Honey, you are absolutely beautiful. I've never seen any more beautiful bride." She said, "Thank you, thank you." He said, "But I have a couple of faults that I want to bring to your attention." She said, "Okay, that's wonderful." So he told her what it was, and she said, "Thank you very much for enlightening me." She said, "Just wanted to let you know I was aware of those faults, and that's exactly why I didn't get the most superb husband as I could ever get." In other words, he wasn't the best either. Choir sang about written in red, talking about the cross. And that's what I want us to look at today. That story has nothing to do with the cross at all. Just thought I'd share it with you. Mark chapter 8, verse 34. Then Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "If anyone will come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it." Now, you've heard this passage of Scripture read probably many times. You've probably heard it preached a few times. I don't know. But have you ever taken the time to really consider and think about what Jesus is saying here? Well, we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. But before we do, I want to bring to your attention a couple of things we need to realize about Jesus. First of all, there is the startling honesty of Jesus. Jesus never tries to bribe us by the offer of an easy life. He never promised that life would go smoothly. Take up his cross and follow me. That's not an easy road. Jesus never tried to lure people to him by the offer of an easy way. He came out not to make life easy, but he came to make people free. Secondly, Jesus never calls upon us to do anything that he was not prepared to do himself. Think about that for a moment. What he asked you and I to face, he's already faced. And when he calls upon us to take up a cross, he himself has already bore that cross for you and I. And that goes against what the world teaches. For the world teaches that success is measured by how much wealth you can accumulate, by how convenient and easy our lives are, and anything that bothers us or becomes difficult, we should avoid. Some churches even seem to have adopted this attitude. So churches are advertised as places offering all kinds of fringe benefits to the members. And many people go shopping for just the right church that seems to offer them the most. And that's the way the world has conditioned us to think. Everybody ought to cater to us, and our wants and our desires ought to be met. But when that doesn't happen, we become unhappy. But yet the words of Jesus are still there. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up the cross, and follow me. Now what did he mean? What does it mean to take up a cross? What does it mean to bear a cross? What does it mean when people say, well, that's just a cross that I have to bear? What does it mean when someone says, I want to take up my cross and follow Jesus? What does the Bible teach about cross bearing? Just happen to have a cross here today. Nice, wooden cross. Yeah. I'm going to bear this cross. You know, number one, cross bearing is always voluntary. Jesus calls us and He challenges us, but ultimately it is our decision whether we're going to carry His cross or not. So taking up a cross and following Him is totally voluntary. And we generally are pretty careless in the way that we talk about our cross bearing. Think with me, for example. Suppose that after extensive testing, the doctor tells me, Larry, you've got diabetes, you've got heart trouble, and you're going to have to just deal with it for the rest of your life. Now that may be a burden that I must bear, but it's not a cross that I have taken up for Jesus Christ. So I can't then tell others, well, that's just my cross that I have to bear. Because I didn't volunteer for it. Or if a tornado happens to hit through Holly Hills and tears my home up, I can't call that a cross that I have to bear because I didn't volunteer for that either. It's not something I chose for Jesus. Or if a loved one dies and I go through the long days of trying to deal with grief and filling the empty spots in my life that are there, that is not a cross. It may seem like a cross, but hear me. It may be a heavy burden, but it's not a cross that we're bearing for Jesus Christ. You see, if I talk about bearing a cross, that means I am voluntarily taking up a cross for Jesus. Just like I voluntarily picked up this cross over here. So cross-bearing, number one, is voluntary. Number two, cross-bearing is an act of love. It's not an accident that happens to us or something unavoidable that we must face. Cross-bearing is an act of love that we freely choose. It is a job that we undertake, a price that we pay out of love. And for Jesus, it meant going to a cross to die on Calvary because He loved us so much that He could do nothing else. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in Him should not perish but have what? Eternal life. It means reaching out to people who are unlovable and unlovely and who may never return to love. And yet we are to keep on loving because that's what Jesus did. It means not just loving people who love you back. Now, hopefully my wife loves me. She understands my idiosyncrasies and all my little proclivities and annoying habits, and for some reason she keeps on loving me. I love my girls, and they love me back as well. And they love me unconditionally. Well, let's face the fact. It is hard to love people who don't love you back, isn't it? We all know some. It's hard to love people who hate us, who persecute us, who want to rub things in our face, and yet cross-bearing means that we keep on loving. Why? Because Jesus did, and we're to be His example. You want to read a description of what it really means to carry a cross? Go with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 for a moment. I'll give you a moment to get there. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I'm going to pick up reading by verse 4. I want to change a couple of words in there. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning in verse 4, where it says that love is patient, love is kind, all those things. I want you to insert the word cross-bearer. A cross-bearer is patient. A cross-bearer is kind. A cross-bearer does not envy. A cross-bearer does not boast. A cross-bearer is not arrogant or rude. A cross-bearer is not self-seeking. A cross-bearer is not easily angered or keeps records of wrongdoing. He does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. A cross-bearer always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. That is what cross-bearing means. It means taking the love of God to the very ends of the world, to touch the lives of people who are sometimes unlovable. It means denying and sacrificing. It means paying the price regardless of the hardships that we must endure. So number one, it's voluntary. Number two, it's an act of love. Number three, cross-bearing is hard. Now, it's not hard to understand that people have always had trouble with that. Whenever the message of the cross has been preached, people have always objected to it. Wait a minute, that's hard. I can't do that. I can't live like that. I can't love that person. Well, Jesus talked about His impending death on the cross. And His apostles balked at that thought. They tried to keep Him from going to Jerusalem. If you read the scriptures there, they said, we don't want you to die. And when He did die on the cross, they hid behind locked doors, scared of what might happen to them. Then a few years later, the Apostle Paul wrote about the cross in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 22 and 24. Apostle Paul said, Jews demand miraculous signs and Greeks look for wisdom. For we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. That hasn't changed much. We can understand the Jews stumbling over the idea of their Messiah hanging on a cross. They were an oppressed people. They had been oppressed by the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Greeks and now by the Romans. But one thing kept them going through all of that. Every night as they came together in their family circles, they read again God's promises of the Messiah. Fathers would tell their children, one day the Messiah will come and set us free. And He will ride in on a prancing stallion. He will be a magnificent king with legions of soldiers behind Him, wearing uniforms and holding weapons of war. And they will defeat our enemies and make them bow down before us, and God's people will be in control. Then the Messiah came. But not as they expected. He came as an itinerant preacher from Nazareth. Remember, nothing good comes from Nazareth. Some called Him a madman. His army was made up of 12 men. Instead of great military victories, it was a crucifixion. So the cross was a stumbling block to the Jews. Wasn't what they expected. Wasn't what they wanted to hear. And many times neither do we. And Jesus' talk about bearing the cross bothers us sometimes. As we lean back in our easy chairs, hot coffee in our cup, a loving companion by our side, rejoicing in our successes, we hear Jesus say quietly to us, take up your cross and follow me. He says, there are some lost sheep, and I need a shepherd to find them and bring them home. But we say, Lord, I don't want to bear that kind of a cross. I've worked hard, and I really need more time for myself. Sunday morning comes, and he says, I have a classroom of squirming little children who need to hear the good news about Jesus. But we say, not me, Lord. Maybe there's a nursery back there with little ones that need to hear the story of Jesus. I don't want to carry that kind of a cross. You see, Jesus is setting crosses all around us. All around us are people who need to hear the gospel message. Once again, we find ourselves wrestling with the cross. Over here are all the things that we want, and over there are all the needs of a lost world. And the words of Jesus come back to haunt us one more time. If you're my disciple, then deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. But I can't help but wonder what kind of a world it would be if we just had the courage to put into practice what Jesus taught us. If we could turn the other cheek and go the second mile and really learn to love our enemies, I wonder what kind of world would result. You see, we're running around piecing together our lives, trying to build homes and stockpile possessions. But you know what? One day, according to the Word, it's all going to be gone. It's going to burn up. It's going to disappear. And it's all going to count for nothing. And the only thing that's going to last is the cross that we have borne for Jesus. We offer you a cross today. Not a life of ease. Not a church that is perfect with all the solutions to the problems. We can't guarantee you success on the job. We can't even promise that your marriage will work. And we can't promise that you'll stop having problems at home. All we really have to offer is Jesus Christ and His cross.